well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment.
Steve, I think you listen to the podcast a little bit. I'm not sure how many episodes of ours you've caught.
Yeah, I've caught a few.
But I'll ask you the same question I usually start off with. What does the Second Amendment of our U.S. Constitution mean to you as an individual?
Well, like everybody says, and I'll be the next one to say it as well, without the second, we have nothing else. You know how that goes, Joe. And they're slowly trying to erode it and take our weapons away. And, you know, and that's just a big no-no. I mean, I served, you served. You know, I mean, I didn't serve my country for people to be on their knees and lesser men than me and you telling us how to live and what we're supposed to do in this world. It's very big for me. You notice, I mean, social media, the freedom of speech is going away. That old Zuckerberg, he tried, I don't know how many times he put me in Facebook jail, but I got 3 accounts.
Did that really happen to you?
Yeah,
Seriously?
I got 3 accounts, Leigh. So he puts me in jail on one. I got another one. I can still, because
Wow.
If we see you go quiet on one, we'll look for one of the other ones.
I'll just send you the link. I got 3 of them. I'm out there, Joey.
Interesting.
But yeah, the Second Amendment, man. To me, I think everybody should conceal carry. To tell you the truth, I don't think you should have a license for it because, you know, my wife, you know, before she got her concealed carry, you know, I'd say, here, take this 9, and there's one in the throat. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she'd go down to visit my sister-in-law down in Mississippi. You have to, you know, go through Memphis. Memphis ain't a pretty town. I'd tell her, you know, here, you take this. Right. She's a hunter. She knows how to shoot. She didn't ever, but what if I get pulled over? I says, well, you just act real polite and you tell that cop, and I'm sure he'd let you go that, hey, today's world is crazy. And then say, it is my right. I'm sorry, I do have a FOID card. Mm-hmm. She does have a FOID card.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. All the rules and.
Yeah, specifically here in Illinois, it's. I feel like we're going backwards.
Right.
Through other parts of the country, we've talked, there's been some progress made with how many states are now just a constitutional carry, where you don't have to have a permit.
Right. That's the way it should be.
Absolutely. So I assume you're an absolutist.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of the Constitution then.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you this. What about maybe someone that's a convicted felon? Do you think somebody that is a convicted felon, but maybe they were incarcerated and then they've served their time and they come out, do you think somebody like that should?
It depends. I mean, if you're in there for, I don't think they're going to let mass murderers out, but if you're in there for murder with a firearm and you did 30 years or whatever and you get out, I don't know. It's pretty iffy. I wouldn't want that personally, but, you know, if you did some robbery or something, you know, or you stole a 6-pack of Modelo's, you know, and they put you in jail, sure. Why not, you know? I just think it's a right. To me, personally, you go down south in Mississippi, where I go in Texas, I go down in winter hunting, they open carry. But I don't like that. I mean, you're just a target right there when you're open carrying right there. Concealed carry is the way to go. You know, I mean, you're the first one you get popped. If somebody wants to do something, they're going to pop you.
They're going to get rid of you first, so they can do it.
I've seen several examples of someone open carrying and having their gun taken from them at gunpoint.
Oh yeah.
You know, because if you're
slow,
if you're standing in line, you know, if you're standing in line at the gas station, this is actually the one I'm thinking of. Guy's standing in line waiting to pay for his getting something from the gas attendant, and the guys come up behind him and they stick a gun in his back. At that point, you know, somebody's got the drop on you that much.
Yep.
You don't have a lot of choices there. So yeah, open carry is a little complicated.
Yeah, I just think they do it to say, hey, look at me, I've got a gun, but they should know everybody else does too. Yeah. You know, down Mississippi, everybody's back, and where I go down hunting, they still put their rifles on the crossbars in the back of their pickup truck. I mean, there's not one in the throat for sure. You don't do a lot of bolt action 308s and 270s down there. They're not fully loaded, but they still do that.
Oh yeah, cultures are different. You know,
up here they are.
My wife taught. We were in rural Georgia when I was still stationed at Fort Stewart, and she taught at one of the high schools down there. And she, during hunting season, the kids pulled up to high school, and the shotguns were right on the either on the back window or hanging in the back of the truck, and they were just kids going to hunt after school. Right after school, they were going out to hunt.
Yep.
and nobody batted an eye.
Right?
And here, people would pass out if they saw a shotgun in a school parking lot.
Yep. Well, all your crime is up here. You know, down south there, around Fort Stewart, Savannah. I went to basic Fort Benning. Now it's Fort Moore, but I think Trump's going to turn it back to good old Benning.
I think it did.
hope.
Yeah,
I think it
that
did.
already happened.
Yeah.
Although I think someone told me that it's not the same Benning.
Clay mentioned.
Yeah.
I think they found a different
Benning. Yeah.
Benning to honor to use
Yeah.
to change it back to Fort Benning.
True that.
Yeah, a different soldier. It was
Yeah.
a different soldier because I guess the original, it was Colonel Benning or something. He had something to do with the slaves.
Civil War.
or-
Yeah, Civil War stuff. So.
No, second's very important, and people need to be aware of, you know, it's basically just your right. I don't, you know, and I think, you know, half my family's cops.
Well, I didn't know that.
And retired cops, and I got a lot of friends that are cops, and I'm like, I've asked them these questions throughout the years. I says, would you come in and take somebody's gun if the government told you to take it? And they say, absolutely not. So that's what they say, you know.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, because it's very easy to say that in a casual conversation.
Yep.
But if you've been on the job for, 18 years, and if you don't do it, you're going to get fired, and you lose your pension, and you lose your career. We learned during COVID, a lot of people are willing to give up their civil liberties when they're afraid of something.
Yep.
It was very disappointing.
It was.
And I think that, unfortunately, there would be some people that, even though they know it's wrong and they don't want to,
Yes.
they would feel compelled,
Well,
strongly to do
yep.
so.
COVID was a precursor of, hey, let's see how they act. We're going to tell them to do this. You got to wear a mask. You got to do that. You got to do this. And if they do it, hey, we've completed step one. Now we're indoctrinizing the children in school, and
But I'll tell you what, some of that backfired on them. It really caused a lot of parents to really pay attention to what's going on in school, and more and more people going to school board meetings and standing up for, what they feel is right and for what they feel is wrong.
And you're right. A lot of people did, for lack of a better term, knuckle under during that time period. But a lot of people showed incredible courage and stood up to a lot of things as well. So, thank
that's
God
what
for
we
that.
need.
Yeah.
People don't understand it. I tell people all the time. That's why I get put in Facebook jail. I says, these politicians need to go, I says, it's we the people. And you might want to edit this, because I say we the people, and we the people are the pussies. Okay? Because if we all get together, now look at what that Youngkin did in Virginia, 3 years ago? He says, we're banning the AR-15s. 10,000 people showed up, I guess, outside the Capitol in Virginia with AR-15s. Not one shot was fired, and guess what? Boom, that went down the tubes real quick. I think that's how it went down. Remember that in Virginia?
You're testing my memory a little bit, but it's still.
Maybe Michigan? I remember the occurrence. Was it Virginia, though?
No, it was Virginia.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, Gretchen Whitmer. No, you're talking about the three guys that supposedly were going to kidnap her or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's something else there, too.
But speaking about Michigan, the state cops, that Michigan militia, they went into that Capitol, and they're yelling at them state cops are right there at them Capitol doors, and them militiamen are yelling at the cops, and nothing was happening, because she wanted to take them away as well. And guess what? Old Pritzker, he prevailed. And what cracks me up, Joe?
For now.
Yes. 3 weeks after he banned our guns, what's he do? Him and his cousin, who's a colonel in the Army, and they're big history buffs in the military, they open up a gun range in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Just over
and
the border.
he bans our guns. Is that hypocritical or what?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
didn't know that.
Yeah, it's right off the tri-state in Kenosha. It's a gun store, a gun range, right over the border. I mean, within 15 minutes.
Yep.
It's Chicago way. Make money on both ends. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. How, Steve? When did you originally get into firearms?
I was going
As
to
a
ask
kid?
that. Yeah, that was what I was thinking about too.
When I was probably 10 years old,
Really?
Yeah,
with a 410 shotgun, shooting rabbits with my grandpa out at the farm.
yeah. I think that's why a lot of people started on the farm with 410 like that, or a Ruger 1022 seem to be two of the most
Little
popular.
22. We used to shoot little 22 LRs at the pigeons up underneath the bridge, and And we were, my grandpa, it was right out Caton Farm and Grove Road. He owned all that property. There's a big farm field there. Right before Grove Road to the white, there's an old white farmhouse. And, I was brought up on a farm,
Wow.
And, but, yeah, I was introduced, how to stay safe with them too,
Sure.
And my grandpa actually took him away from me because he'd go hunting with my brother. And, you always had to keep your finger off, just like the military, Leigh, keep your finger off the trigger till you need to use it. Point your gun down. I'd walk with it sideways like that, do a Dick Cheney, you know what I mean? Dick Cheney, and shoot his partner, So my grandpa would say, oh, no, you're grounded for a week.
Well, the thing is anybody for a lot of people listening, they're not going to realize the area you're describing. But when you were a kid, police response would have been a long time to get out there.
Yes.
So you had to, that was rural.
It was still a gravel road. Caton Farm Road was.
Wow.
Caton Farm, from 59 to 50, north of 59 on Caton Farm was all gravel. We used to ride our dirt bikes out there.
So it was hunting, food. Yep. It was personal safety, family safety. It was all of it.
Yep.
When did you first start thinking about firearms and the Second Amendment, like from a political? Can you remember, like, when you first became kind of like politically aware about firearms or anything like that? Do you?
When Obama said that.
Really?
When Obama said, you don't need 30 rounds to go hunting a deer, or no, and I'm thinking in my head, no, we need 30 rounds in case you come in and want to take my gun.
Gotcha.
I got a shirt, Leigh, that says, you can have my guns, bullets first. I'll text it to you. But yeah, that's when, I thought, wow, this guy's, he's in Illinois here.
Right.
They're afraid of people with guns.
Yeah.
And we're moral, upstanding citizens. We
We've talked about that on this podcast
many
several
times, I'm sure.
Yeah,
And I'm just like the rest of them, Leigh. It's just horrible. And they will get them bullets first. They come into my house, see, they're, it's just not going to happen,
Yeah. The interesting part is for people that are either know very little or nothing about firearms, the misconception about who should have them and why they should have the firearms. And I'm not sure exactly when, but I'm pretty sure I know why the big push was, you don't need this for hunting, you don't need that for hunting. Constitution has nothing to do with hunting. Not one damn thing about going and hunting a deer.
Well, like I said, they try to pervert it, Joe. They're perverting the Constitution and all the amendments.
I agree with that.
They should all be arrested for perversion of the Constitution.
Well, if they can confuse you as to what it means, then they can tell you what it means, and then it only means what the government tells you it means.
Yep, and it only means what the government tells the people that are anti-gun. There's actually probably just as much anti-gun as there is gun owners. I would think.
Do you think there's that many I think there's. Obviously there's firearm enthusiasts, and there's gun owners, and I think that's different.
Yep.
There's anti-gun.
Yep.
I think there's a big part in the middle that's just, they're not for me. I don't care if you have it. It's not for me. I think there's a big part of our society that is that.
Right.
What I call extremists or far left are the ones that they don't want them, but they absolutely don't want you to have them either.
Yep.
For me to have anything or anybody out there.
But they sure would like me around them if somebody was hurting them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, don't get me wrong. I carry everywhere. I'm sorry. I don't carry right now. I carry in church.
Yeah.
I do. It's my right. I feel naked without it.
Yeah.
I leave my house, and oh man, I go to work, and I don't care if I'm 10 miles away. I circle around. I go back and grab it.
Steve, I make a point to carry if I'm going to my mailbox.
Right.
I really do.
Yep. When I'm working in the garage, I set my 9 right on the bow of my boat, because there's a little my neighborhood's getting a little riff-raffy, and they're walking in the middle of the street, and they're always casing something out. Somebody is, and I'm like,
Well,
Just keep walking, kids.
I saw statistics the other day that said over 50% of self-defense situations involving firearms were in the home.
Well, that's probably because they
in
weren't.
the home.
so like a robbery or forced entry or
Yeah,
something
so it's like
that?
sort of like, wear it around your house
Yep.
while
I
you're
do.
mowing the grass, when you go to the mailbox, because of the 100% of firearms related self-defense situations, over half of them took place like right at your home.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know if
I
I,
thought
would have
that was
guessed.
interesting too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have necessarily guessed it.
I
I know what I would have predicted. I would have predicted that it would happen more in the public and less around the home.
me too.
But on the other hand, you spend more time, between your workplace and your home. That's where you're spending most of your
Yep.
time.
And if you got
So
toys
chances are-
laying around the backyard or the garage is wide open,
Yeah.
and and homeowners, I mean, they don't need a concealed carry if they got a FOID card. That's another thing. If you don't have a concealed carry or a FOID card, you should still have a gun in the house. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
It's your Second Amendment right, and you'll wish you had one someday if something happens. And don't get me wrong, I would never want to pull it out and use it.
Yeah.
God forbid, because one, we know we're going to jail, okay? Unless there's a ton of witnesses that say, yeah, he came up and disabled the guy because this guy had a gun to this lady's head, and if there was 50 people that said that, they might just take it and run a background check, whatever. But they say you're going to jail,
I think it's a pretty safe bet that if you're involved in something involving a firearm, and of course, especially if there's an injury, there's going to be an arrest.
Yep.
Especially in Cook County.
Yeah. Well, sure.
I think some places are a little less likely.
Yeah.
But I think if you're in Cook County, and if Cook County Police or Chicago Police are involved, I think you can count on getting arrested and then just fight, your case in court.
Yep. You got to have the witnesses for sure. I mean, you got to know when to walk away though too.
Whenever you can.
If you see some guy beating on a girl or whatever, I'm gonna say, hey man, back off. I'm calling the cops right now. I'm calling the cops.
Yeah.
I mean, if he, here's the phone, dude. I'm calling the cops, man. He sees me on the phone now. If he comes charging at me with something, it's a done deal, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's all over.
But it's for a responsible gun owner, it's never the goal to have to.
Yep, absolutely.
The goal is to not use it.
That's right.
It's a last resort.
That's always the best day when you didn't have to.
Yep. A lot of cops like that. My family members never had to draw their pistol, and thank God they say, thank God they didn't,
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
that's the responsible part, like you said, Joe. Responsible gun ownership.
Yeah, and that's really the part that we advocate for, because there's well, I digress for a moment. Besides the podcast, we also have a website, and we've written a couple blogs. In my first blog, Steve, I titled Capitalizing on Ignorance. And I think there's so many people, and politicians know, right? There's so many people that they are very ignorant to firearms. They don't know anything about them.
Right.
So those people have a tendency to believe what they hear in a news broadcast, maybe something they see on television.
Yep.
They think, that
Oh, that's got to be right.
that's got to be right.
Yep.
So again, if the government through politicians can create fear of an AR-15 or what they want to call an assault
Yep.
rifle, assault weapon, then it's easier to
Manipulate.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why when we say part of our goal is, to advocate for the Second Amendment, but also to educate people. I think there's so many people that are just very ignorant to the topic. And when I say ignorant, they just don't know. I don't think it's taught in schools anywhere near where it used to a couple generations ago. And if they don't come from a family where there are police officers or any firearm enthusiasts,
Right.
then all they know is, what they see on, a news
On
broadcast.
CNN. Don't
Yeah,
get me-
and I'll tell you what, I've seen some of those videos where a so-and-so expert is handling an AR-15, and it's
And
you
he
know,
don't
it's-
know how to handle it.
And there's one particular video I'm thinking of. I want to say he was even a former military, and he's shooting this AR-15, and he's pretending it's got all this recoil, and
Yeah.
he's got the stock underneath his arm. And if you don't know anything about guns, and you see that, and you're like, oh my, this
horrible.
veteran. I mean, look at how hard it is to control this firearm.
I'm all over the place.
And I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn it's so much easier to shoot an AR-15 accurately than it is a pistol.
In basic training, where'd you do your basic, Lee?
Fort Jackson.
Fort Jackson, South Carolina. But down in Benning, they made us, before we fired one round out of that M16A1, I went in 84, got out in 88, and did a couple of years active reserve with 12 Special Forces Group, training cadets and on the machine gun and the art of patrolling. And you know, you had to put that M16A1 right there, right on your crotch, and boom, pull the trigger.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Down in infantry training school you did. Yeah, basic training back then, I mean, they were all Vietnam vets that trained me, and I served with Vietnam vets. So it was a little different back then than what I hear it's about now. I got friends of mine that put 27 in, 30 years in, command sergeant majors, and they're like, they got out in, 2007, and, the earlier days of Afghanistan and Iraq, and they're like, God, I couldn't wait to get out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that it was that bad that, the
I first
wokeism, and it
saw a
started
little bit
back
of
then
that.
in 2010.
I saw a little bit of that by the time I got out, which was 2007, and it was already starting to creep in a bit.
Right.
So yeah, those Vietnam vets though, that triggered something with me too, because I originally joined after you. So around the time you were getting out, I was just sort of going in. I think I went in '87.
Good years.
And
Real
right
army,
about-
the
you're
good
right-
army, the
you're
brown
right
boot
about
army.
Yeah, you're right about the
Crack that ass, Lee.
Vietnam vets took good care of us.
Right.
They always told us they weren't going to let any officers do any stupid shit.
That's right.
Because they had experienced plenty of that themselves.
Yeah. Well, an officer would never question an E7 or E8 that's got 3 tours in Vietnam. He'd always look for some guidance, you know.
Yeah.
And it was good back then. Today, I hear I'm an officer. I don't care how many deployments you have. You're gonna listen to what I have to say, So, but back to the gun ownership. I'm getting off track
Oh,
here,
no,
Joe.
it's fine.
I was having a little flashback with Lee here about what was happening.
No, it's 100% okay. It's all part of it.
Right.
Obviously, like, you're very passionate about the Second Amendment, the Constitution. Have you, over the years, have you bumped into people and had heated discussions about it? Is it anything that catches people off guard?
Not really, because everybody I hang around with is concealed carry.
You don't associate with
And I don't associate with people that, oh, you got a gun. Oh my God. Oh, you're a bad person. I mean, there's a good video out where, and he's a combat vet, Leigh, and he's got his AR-15 sitting right there next to him on the couch, and he's yelling at the gun, "Shoot me, shoot me." You know how the manipulation you just said with the guy, with the shooting it, and it's all over the place, and oh my God,
The gun springs to life.
Yes, he can't handle that gun. They gotta outlaw them guns. They'll shoot somebody. Well, this guy's sitting on the couch saying, "Here, go ahead and shoot me." Would you get off the couch and please shoot me?
Stop being lazy.
It takes the person with the finger to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to some of the manipulation, there's a podcast I listen to regularly, Patrick Bet David, and it's interesting because I was just listening to it, and it was an older episode. I recently did a lot of driving, so I caught up on some old episodes, and I almost wish I would have been listening to it live because they were talking about some firearm statistics about school shootings and maybe what is the root of some of it. And so they bring up a chart, and I forget the year, so forgive me, but He's like, so there's between X amount and X amount from this year and this year, and then all of a sudden in 2000, I think they said 17, they spiked, and
Yes, I've seen one of them.
but do you know why they spiked?
It's the way they reported it.
They changed what
the
is
criteria,
considered
yeah.
a school shooting, where it used to be a school shooting was occurred on the school grounds within the school, and I think around 2017 they changed it where if it's within 500 feet
It's a school
of a school property, then it's considered a school shooting. Well, go into Chicago, into some of those neighborhoods, and if you're not 500 feet away from a school this way or that way, or, I mean, you can barely go more than a quarter mile. I mean, you're almost within 1,000 feet any direction in Chicago, in the neighborhoods of a school. Yes. So a lot of those shootings that they say are, school shootings, they're just within, it's the same, gang violence that has always occurred, but now it's considered a school shooting because of the proximity. And I so badly wanted to be able to call in and clarify, because again, people don't know. And those people are typically leaning right, and they're looking at it and they're like, I wonder why that is. What's causing the number to go up? But if they can make the number go up and they can say, well, now it's a public health epidemic.
Lying with statistics, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in Democrat-controlled cities, my opinion, Joe and Lee, is this. It's punks and thugs with guns. Down south, if there's a school shooting, it has to do with bullying. They say a lot of bullying. Kids are getting bullied, and they just snap.
You know what I agree with you in general without knowing the numbers, but what I'd also like to see is, I don't know if a traditional school shooting would be the right way to categorize it, but something that we would call a traditional school shooting where a student goes into a school and actually tries to commit mass murder, is I'd really like to know what percentage of those people were suffering with a mental health issue. Yeah. That's what I would like to know. Yep.
Probably all of them. It's got to be all of them, Joe. I would think.
I would think the vast majority, right? But I think that if they put that number out there, then it's no longer a gun issue. It's then we need to deal with mental health issues.
Well,
and
I also would like it to be more commonly known, how many of them had unauthorized access to the firearms that they used. Where the gun belonged to mom or dad, and it should have been locked up.
Well, should have been locked up. Down south, they don't lock them up, Lee.
Well, I know a lot of places they don't. A lot of places they don't. But I'm of the opinion that's pretty irresponsible. If you have young people around.
Yep.
Up to what age? I'm curious.
Men or women? Because it'll be different.
Okay.
Men will be about 26. And
we
women
don't
will probably be about 18.
Yeah, we don't mature till then, huh?
Exactly.
Wait till we're 26 years. I think you got a point there.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. But I forget his name. I mean, that gentleman a couple years ago in Indiana, 21 years old, stopped a mass shooter at a mall.
Yep.
Was it Eli? Was it?
Yes, started with an E.
Is that what I don't want to say for certain, but
he got arrested, but they let him out.
If he was arrested, it was pretty short term.
Because he wasn't supposed to have the gun in the mall.
Handguns are 21 right now. Are you guys in with 21 as a good age? I'm comfortable with it. A lot of people make the argument, if you're old enough to sign a contract, you could go serve for Uncle Sam, you should be able to
That's right.
carry whatever you want.
That's right.
Drink a beer.
You guys think that?
Yep.
But you can't drink a beer till you're 21.
Right. But if you can go fight and die for our country, you sure as shit should be able to crack open a Coors and still have that option, I think.
Sure.
It is, as far as the alcohol goes. And I don't mean to avoid the topic because I want to come back to it. I was recently having a conversation with somebody because we were talking about firearms, and I'm much like you, pretty much an absolutist.
Right.
I even think convicted felon, if you served your time and you're out, you should have your rights restored.
That's right.
Your other rights are restored. You still have the right to not incriminate yourself, the Fifth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. They still have to, the right to privacy. You reestablish your First Amendment right to freedom of speech. We can have the conversation on who should and shouldn't be let out.
Right.
But if you're let out, then I think you've paid your debt.
You're rehabilitated, as they say it.
Like I said, we can go back to who should and shouldn't be let out.
Right.
But if you're let out, you're part of society again.
That's right.
So I think you should get that right. But, and I'll just say it, my brother said, so you don't believe in any regulation? And I'm like, for the most part, no. He goes, so like a 12-year-old should just be able to. I'm like, well, no, not a 12-year-old. He goes, so you believe in some regulation? It's like, well, is that considered regulation? I guess it would be, right? So where is that line drawn? Is it age of 16? You can drive a car. Is it age of 18? And if you're 17 years old, 17 and 360 days old, compared to 18 and 10 days old, are you that much more mature those 20 days?
Yep, right.
But we do have to have some parameters. So what are those reasonable parameters?
Well, like Leigh said, I think if you serve your country and you get out, you're 21, boom, it's a given.
Automatic.
Even if yes, automatic. I actually think 18 years is reasonable. You're considered an adult now at 18 years old. Man up. It's time.
Full rights.
Well, they do it.
Long guns, handguns, 18 years old?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Yes, anything.
Yeah. Joe, you...
Technically, Leigh, if you want to get into it, sir, it's, it's our Second Amendment right.
Right.
You could be 6 years old. I mean, if he's responsible,
And that's the question. When you grow up on a farm, you grow up quicker.
Yep.
Than a lot of other society. Right. You're working at 8, 9, 10 years old. You're helping. You're bringing
baling hay. I was throwing them up in the loft, shooting a 410 after.
It's that responsibility part.
I have nothing. I'm basing this on nothing other than my experience. Right. Yep. You take a 15-year-old that's grown up on a farm. He is way more responsible than your average 18-year-old that's growing up in the middle of a suburb.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
So
work ethics and morals,
are family bond.
They come quicker.
You appreciate life, everything.
Yes. Well, that's because they're taught that, Joe.
Correct.
They're taught, do unto others. Would you like this done unto you? Well, no, Grandpa. Then you don't do it to anybody else. My grandpa would say.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So that 15-year-old is probably just fine leaving the house with the 410 shotgun with him and his 14-year-old brother to go hunting. Right. But
we did that.
By today's standards, you're not supposed to do that.
Right.
But I'd be willing to bet there's a lot of those 14, 15-year-old brothers out there that are doing just fine bringing home rabbits and birds, for dinner.
Yeah, they are in Kentucky and Missouri. Just go right across the border. And I see it all the time. I hunt in Missouri and Kentucky, Mississippi. Them kids down there, they're hunting pheasant when they're 12 years old with their orange on, with a 410. And
So I guess my point is it an individual or is it just an age?
It's an individual. It's moral upbringing.
But we just assigned an age.
Different.
There should be some type of test. Some type of test to test your mental aptitude.
But who the hell's going to write that test? You have the government write it?
Yeah, well, no, you don't want the government writing it, Joe.
So exactly. So then who do you...
Well, I was going to say, I don't think it's either one of them. I think it's a culture. What you guys, I think, are saying is that on a farm, there tends to be
more morals,
a certain kind of culture that raises young people to be more responsible earlier.
Yes,
absolutely.
And I was thinking, while you guys were talking about that, I was sort of thinking that, my thought is, I've been sort of comfortable with the idea that a young person wouldn't be able to have a handgun until they were 21. You can get a long gun when you're 18, but a concealable firearm until you're 21. But now that you guys are talking this way, I'm sort of rethinking it, because maybe actually what we're doing just as a society is we're prolonging like adolescence. We're assuming that people can't handle things, when if we would push that responsibility down on people earlier, then maybe we could raise a person to the standard where we'd be fine with people exercising all of their Second Amendment rights at an earlier age, 18, 16, whatever it might be.
But as far as that goes, we're going backwards. Look at how people want to coddle and
this is what I was thinking about when you guys were saying that. That's exactly what was going through my mind.
When
we're prolonging adolescence for men and women
because you can't crack your kid in the ass, Lee.
Yeah, could be.
You know, you can't. When you
I did.
Yes, well, I did too. You know what I mean?
I'm sure.
And you know, he's a fireman paramedic. You know, he turned out great. You know, he went to college. He did good. You know, I was on him.
Yep.
And he said that 20 years ago, when he's 37 years old, 20 years ago, we got into it. And he's 17. I'm gonna call the cops, Dad. Are you?
Yeah.
I says, guess what? You know, two things are gonna happen here. I'm gonna be out of the house just for one night, and you're going to be going in a foster home. What do you want to do, you know? And it just kind of led to that. I mean,
right.
He wasn't going to call him, but it's the upbringing. If we pushed it back because we're not allowed to discipline our kids.
Yeah.
You can't lay a hand on them. I mean, I got switched right in the behind. I had to pull my pants down with them pussy willows. Remember them branches? My grandpa used to let me have it. And my grandma had this paddle with holes drilled in it. So the paddle would fly faster.
Right.
Aerodynamics.
Less air resistance on the.
And you'd look at your behind, you'd have a red mark and a bunch of little white holes. You know, that was upbringing.
But grab your kid's arm and discipline them in Target right now, and there's a chance there'll be a cop waiting for you when you go out to your car.
And 15 people videotaping it.
I think the other thing too is like we're very risk averse. We're afraid of. It's almost like we want to wrap all of our kids in bubble wrap.
Become a bunch of pansies.
Yeah, coddle, like Joe said. It's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Not me.
We don't want to do things because we're afraid of what might happen.
Guess what? My daughter knows how to change tires and oil. She's 23 years old. She learned how to do it when she was 19. I showed her, my daughter. You don't see that today.
Yeah, less and less.
That instills morals. That instills
independence.
Yeah. That's the thing right there. Right? You just said it, Joey. Independence. People that, and you said, who makes the decision of when you can carry? Maybe everybody has to go see a psychiatrist. You know, but not a left-wing psychiatrist. Okay, you can't go. You got to go see a neutral psychiatrist.
I'll give you the list of the ones that are okay to go see. But maybe up until 18, the parents get to decide if their child is responsible enough.
Then it's on the parents, right? Then it's on the parents. Well, it's on the parents anyway.
It is.
So.
But they don't get to make that decision.
Yes, right. You're right.
And maybe they should.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Because who knows your kids better than the parents?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I know a lot of really irresponsible adults that I would never want to see have a firearm.
Right.
But because they've never been arrested or gotten caught with any drugs or anything like that, they're 100% right now. They meet all the criteria to be able to buy and get a concealed carry license and carry a gun. And there's some people I know that I think that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But there's nothing really stopping them right now. I think from my perspective, anytime we start implementing regulation, then people are setting up that regulation, and by nature it will be flawed.
Well, somebody's always going to find the flaw because, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, our Second Amendment rights are slowly eroding away. Since the internet came out and social media, and there's more, in 2010, I said, Facebook, this is the downfall. This is the downfall of society right here. There's going to be a ton of information out here and going on. And now the government's scared of people like me and you that are responsible, that will take. I'll stand my ground, like I said. Sure. You can have my guns, bullets first. I'm going to go down, but the first person that comes through that door, if they decide they want to come take my gun, that first person's going to die because them Rottweilers bark first. You know, you'd have to send a cruise missile through my house, Lee, to kill me.
Well, and that's exactly
These days, it's a drone.
Yep. Yeah. They say they got these drones that are the size of a quarter and they carry a 45 ACP and they just zero in on your. That's why they want facial recognition now. But
I forgot where I was going, Steve. That last one with the drone with the 45 threw me.
Threw you off?
Yeah, it threw me off a little bit. You know, with social media and stuff like that,
the government.
I think they are
They're scared
nervous,
of us.
and that's why so much of the algorithm will tamper down or just outright ban and make it very difficult for people to find the stuff that goes against, you know, the manipulation.
Well, yeah, that's the First Amendment right there. They're manipulating the First Amendment.
Yep.
Okay, if they can do that, if you can manipulate the First Amendment, you probably could take the Second Amendment if you really think about it. Because now they're quelling your freedom of speech, and they're only going to talk about what they want you to hear, not what you need to hear.
Yeah.
You know, not what's really happened. It's just all. I think in America I think it's one big soap opera between these two parties all the time. You know, I was a Democrat. There's no modern.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, since when I voted for John McCain. I kind of leaned. I did vote for Ronald Reagan. I don't know why I did, because the commie took a shit. That's why I had to go in the service. Excuse me for swearing, Joe. You'll have to
No
edit
problem.
that one.
No.
But anyway, I got lost too. It's the government. They just don't trust us. They know that we're law abiding. We've had enough, and they'll do anything to take our guns, but have their private security guards and their detail. You know, they're on a pedestal. We're here. We're not going to see it in our lifetime, but there's going to be two classes: the super rich and the super poor.
Yeah.
And they don't want the poor people to have a gun.
No, absolutely. But that's why some of those organizations, Firearm Owner Coalition, Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of America,
Ton of them.
NRA, that's why, you know, those organizations being around that are putting up a continuous fight to not lose ground on the Second Amendment are so important.
Right. Charlton Heston was big on that.
Well, Charlton Heston is the opening of our podcast when he reads the Second Amendment. That's usually the opening of every podcast, because to me it's about perfect.
Right.
When he read the Second Amendment. But that's usually why I encourage people to join an organization. Illinois State Rifle Association. They put up all sorts of lawsuits. They organize all sorts of different events to rally people to stand up for your rights, and
that's your local militias right there.
Yeah.
They're considered a militia.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure if you know off the top of your head. I believe he actually became governor. I know he was lieutenant governor, Mark Robinson. He did a great speech in like 2017 in front of a city board saying, you know, every time there's a mass shooting, you come for, like, you know.
I think I recall what you're speaking of.
The Bloods and the Crips on the other side of the street, they're going to keep their guns because your legal gun owners are going to abide by the law. But we are the people. All of us are the people.
That's right.
You can't keep
quelling the people.
Yeah, and it was a monumental speech. And I don't think he was in politics prior to that. He was a veteran, but that got him all sorts of notoriety. And him, in conjunction with someone else, were really part of the inspiration for myself to want to go 100% right. Like this guy just said everything that was in my mind.
That's right.
He said on a microphone. And
yeah, that's really beautiful when that happens.
It is. Yeah. And for me, what it caused was he's saying it. He's right. Maybe he inspires me. So maybe I should say it. And other people hear me. And maybe someone will hear me.
That's what I do. I hear people all the time. I always said, Joey and Lee, if they gave me 5 minutes on national television and everybody in this country had to watch it, guess what? This country'd probably turn around within a week and I'd have a bullet in my head as soon as I walked out the back door. But I'm willing to take that risk.
I don't know. I think you might be surprised, man.
You know? I
don't know. I'm optimistic. I really am. I don't, you know, I see that we've gone from when I was a kid, I never thought that I'd be carrying a gun every day. and I do.
Yep.
It's not perfect. We've all got to get permits and all this stuff for it. And you might say, well, that's, those are infringements, and they may be, but it's a hell of a lot better than the no right to carry that we had
Prior to 12.
Prior to 12, yeah.
No,
I'm not
agree.
trying to say that the government gives us those rights. I'm smart enough to know that that's not true. But what I'm saying is, at least I feel like we've made progress. We've come a long way. We got a long way to go. We still got a long way to go. We need this. These states that are designating certain weapons as being too dangerous or military oriented or assault style. We need to fix that as sooner as opposed to later. I'm hoping it's going to happen. They keep relisting the Supreme Court cases involving this. They keep relisting it. They're pushing it back, and there's hope that the reason that they're relisting it is that they're waiting for a few more of these cases to percolate through at the state and appellate level, and maybe hopefully we'll get a favorable ruling on this stuff from the U.S. Supreme Court, from the High Court.
Well, that's the thing. Go ahead, Leigh.
Yeah.
I got
No,
something
go ahead.
good to
Feel
say.
free to jump
I got
in,
something good to say.
Yeah.
I mean, when anybody takes that oath, we took that oath to serve and protect the Constitution.
Yeah.
Correct.
So help me God. God. Okay? Well, when these justices, these politicians, they're taking that oath, they're breaking it. They're breaking it right away. Like I said, if my wife, here, you take you take this gun. And if she got put in jail, got pulled over for speeding or something, got put in jail, I guarantee you I would have a lawyer, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with this because she deserves to protect herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay? And that's where we need to be. Illinois needs to be like the rest of the states. It's just, we live in the crappiest state.
Well, that's the other thing.
Everything, hunting, fishing, gun ownership.
But that's the other thing too, Steve. We apparently we have massive non-compliance in this state.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Massive.
Oh, yeah. We were supposed. Well, I don't know.
People
We
responded.
were supposed to register, right?
Right.
I said, I'm not registering mine. If I know you're coming, man, I'm gonna bury him in the backyard.
Well, and going back to what you mentioned about, maybe some police officers, I would hope the vast majority would not want to go into someone's house because
They won't.
they were non-compliant on registering something.
I wish I was more optimistic on that note.
Well, I
I'm not
hope they
optimistic
wouldn't.
on
I
that.
don't know. There's some that would, right?
There's some that would.
There's some that aren't.
Yep.
There's some that would. How much is in the gray area? How many of them are like
Depends on the age.
6 months away from retiring? Do I want to die on this hill? Is this what I want to risk my career on?
Well, it depends. It's that commanding officer giving that order, and they're usually older. They're 40s, 50s, 60s, and they've been around the block. I don't think they'd give that order. Every sheriff said that we wouldn't follow that order, to come in and take your guns.
Right.
And
But I don't mind saying I'm extreme. Not like any of them will ever hear it, right? But I'm so extremely disappointed in our U.S. Supreme Court.
Yep.
That this has been, when the law went into effect 24, but it was actually passed a little over a year prior to that, and they gave everybody a year to kind of like figure out the compliance. So, I mean, that was beginning of 23. We're now into 25. For 2.5 years, this law got passed on a Friday night,
Yep.
pushed through, and
1.5% adhered to it. 1.5, they say in Illinois, registered their stuff.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, it's Illinois' assault weapons ban,
Yep.
right? But for 2.5 years, we can't get that, And I know there's
It should be a done
process,
deal at the Supreme Court right away. It's the Constitution.
but not just that. It's
I
the
agree.
Illinois Constitution too. Illinois has a Constitution.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have
And so
Our Second Amendment in Illinois looks a hell of a lot like the one that's at
Right,
the national
so-
level. Yep, absolutely.
like, why the hell is this still in place?
Because they're scared of us, Joe. The politicians, maybe the justices are getting paid. I wouldn't doubt it. There's lobbyists all over the place, man. They don't like moral people. And, you know, I'm not going to be prejudiced here, Joe and Leigh. I'm going to tell you something because I'm not prejudiced. I hate everybody equally. You have to earn my respect. They're scared of moral white people. I'm telling you that right now. And punks and thugs can have the guns. They want them to have the guns. I may be out there when I'm telling you this. They want them to have the guns, take our guns away, or have them do us, kill us.
Let me ask you this.
Basically, Obama created this divide between white and black, you know, and all this wokeism.
So
DEI.
that causes me to ask this question, right? Along the same lines of the Wuhan flu, where this is dangerous, but the government can protect you. Take this vaccine, right? If they take responsible gun owners' guns away, and the only people left with them are the criminals, do you think that the government, any part of that plan is then we need them to protect us? We become more reliant on the government because we can't protect ourselves at that point?
It's socialism, right? It's socialism when the government takes care of you. And like I said, they're scared of the white male. They're, like us three, they're scared of us voicing our opinions, sticking up for ourselves. You know, like I said, you know, I've never had to pull my handgun out, and I don't think I'll ever have.
Probably never will.
I probably never will.
Most likely, right?
And you know, and it's just, you know, all these justices, anybody who takes in, the only people that adhered to the oath was us, Leigh, when we took the oath into the military, you know, and maybe some local beat cops, but you know, hey, the Department of Justice, the FBI, they're taking that oath and they're breaking their oath. The judges are breaking their oath. The politicians are breaking their oath. And it's just going to get down and dirty and nasty. At some point, I don't think we're going to see it in our time, but I think that's why they're indoctrinating these kids in school that, you know, everything's okay. We'll take care of you, you know.
So
Kids aren't buying it, though, I don't think.
Not anymore.
They're not.
Because of the parents, like Joe said, going to these meetings. I was at a meeting last year in Plainfield where they were having going to have these drag schools. Wasn't it one of them Droughton schools? Remember?
Not that I know of.
Yeah. And then, like, 1,500 parents showed up, and they shut that down real quick. That was last year in Plainfield.
So when these Steve, I'm really curious of your opinion on this. When these politicians, such as Pritzker and his
entourage,
they passed this Illinois weapons ban. Do you think that they honestly don't think they're infringing on the right, or do you think they know they are and they don't care?
They know they are and they don't care, and it's all about votes. The people are calling for him, ban this assault rifle. They're killing mass murderers, or they're, like I said, I could sit on the couch with my AR and tell it to shoot me, and it won't shoot me. It's the person. But they know they're infringing on our rights. They're going to keep infringing on our rights in this state, and it's all about votes. If you can talk a good game, you got the votes. That's why all the illegals were here.
I tend to agree. I think that the platform that is anti-gun for that group of people works, and it gets them power, which is what they really want.
Yep.
And so they'll, and I think that's what's so problematic for me, is that whether you call it anti-Christian or a non-Christian value, or whether you call it tyranny, like however you want to phrase it, I think that relentless pursuit of power, regardless of what the Constitution says, is what concerns me the most.
It's all power.
What kind of person is that?
Well,
that's not the kind of leadership that I want from my government. For people who are obsessed with just,
it's narcissistic.
What do I have to do? What can I pervert? Like you used that word earlier.
Yep.
I don't care what part of the Constitution I have to pervert. I don't care what I have to pervert of my own character,
right?
By
my
lying,
integrity,
misleading my own integrity, right? Any of those things, and that's what we see out of a lot of these politicians. I'm afraid to say, like that's what I see.
Yep.
So, and I agree with both of you, and I have had
Not
a
all.
conversation.
Like, we've had politicians on that don't seem to fall into that category.
No.
Yeah,
Right.
and they don't last long in politics, do they?
Yeah.
Because they don't. They lose the votes because
But when the politicians know they're infringing on the rights, why aren't they held accountable?
because I said we the people are wimps. Hey
That,
Joe,
I
what do you
so.
think would happen if you had 20,000 armed people go to Springfield and say we're here to arrest the governor? What do you think would happen? The National Guard would get called, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because the state cops wouldn't hold us back. Okay, the National Guard. Maybe that's what the government's hoping for. That's the start of the Civil War between the Republic and the democracy. The democracy wants to get rid of the Republic in the Constitution. So, would they fire upon people that are sick and tired? They might.
I do think that there are a lot of
It's an unlawful order for a general to do that, though.
I think there's a lot of people in positions that do see the Constitution as problematic. I think there are a lot of people that would like to do a lot of things, and the Constitution stands in their way. So I'm with you there.
Which is ironic because that's exactly why it was written, to be in the way,
That's right.
as a guarantee against grabbing
For
too
tyranny,
much
for
power. Right.
tyrannical politicians.
That's a very
They
inconvenient
foresaw
thing.
that.
It's very inconvenient.
They foresaw it. No,
Pretty remarkable, wasn't it?
they foresaw that we can't have all this power, and that they were really true Christians. They believed in God. They had more morals, and the Quakers were good people. I mean, these people prayed 3 times a day, I don't know. They foresaw it. They knew it was going to happen. It did happen. And it's just plain and simple that they're scared of us and we're stuck. It's like, who's going to lead the charge? That's the way I'm thinking.
Right.
Who is the man who's going to say, have enough, and let's do this, and let's get it over with? Are you willing to die for your constitutional rights?
And I think
Do you
anymore,
think that guy's president right now?
do I think that guy is president right now?
Yeah, the guy he's talking about. Do we have the right leader at that level?
Yes.
Yeah.
As far as Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. I think
I'm talking about Pritzker marching on him.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't stand him.
I know. Yeah.
I
Oh,
can't stand him. He's a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I go off on him, Joe. I talk about him on his page all the time. And they don't show it anymore because usually the woke liberals, they'll comment back and tell me what a fool I am, but they're not, so they shadow ban me. They don't want me telling the truth.
What platform is that? Like,
On his own personal
on
Facebook
his-
page.
Oh, on his Facebook.
J.B. Pritzker, he talks about how great the economy is and how he's doing this and how we got to help with the property taxes. Whatever, Pritzker, J.B.
Leigh,
shit.
Yeah, I can't stand the guy. Leigh, I think in general, our society is soft.
Yep.
And I think that President Trump, who I'm a big fan of, would be a leader to that. I don't know if there's enough people to stand behind him.
Well, he tried it on January 6th. Actually, it would have been totally different if they were armed. Okay? Not one person had a firearm. I mean, they let him in. He says, what did he say? We have to fight for their country, our country. And you know what? I'm sorry, Joe, and I'm sorry, Leigh, but I'm a firm believer that election was stolen.
You don't
Okay?
have to apologize to me.
Okay, because if you look at Joe Biden, it was stolen, and it pissed Trump off. And it pissed him off.
Yeah.
We were booming. The economy was turning. The stock market was going, gangbusters and
Low
people.
unemployment,
Yep.
all of it.
Yep. Gas was $2 a gallon.
What's interesting is for the 4 years following that election, if you vocalize that and you believe that, you were a kook, right?
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
but now you look at the turnout for 2012, 2016, 2020, 2024, And in 2020, there is this unusually unexplainable spike
Yep.
of millions.
Millions of Democrats.
And it just happened to be during a time when mail-in voting was extended,
Yep.
the way you were able to vote.
That's why
the way
COVID was introduced. I know we're getting off the that COVID was introduced by the Chinese, okay? And it's just one big soap opera. China Joe, I mean, Trump's not pro-Chinese.
Oh, no,
And
absolutely.
that's why they unleashed it. Okay, you got to unleash this. I mean, they unleashed it. They let the January 6ers right in their office. The guards, come on in.
Plenty of video.
Come on in.
Plenty of video opening the doors.
It's just one big soap opera. And like you said, it's who's going to lead the charge? You said people are soft. We are soft, Joe.
Right. So there's leaders. Are there enough people
To follow the
and I don't think so, because the
They're
battle,
scared.
and life is good.
Yeah.
Right? You have a good life. I have a good life. You have a good life.
But with my grandkids.
Right. I would like to think that, I would fight for everything that I believe in, right? That's also me sitting here at a table and not having to make the decision to grab a firearm and go, fight. Now, the fights are done in the courts. That's when we say we need to fight, that means, again, sign up for Gun Owners of America to make sure they have the revenue, to hire lawyers, to hire lobbyists.
You're right.
To get the correct
Yes.
people in office. The battlefield is the court system now. The battlefield's not a field in the middle of Indiana.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Not
it's
yet.
Our,
Not
it's
yet.
Our political. It's our political voting and putting pressure on our parties to get the right people in office that are willing, to people who aren't
Yeah, and that's why I think I'm
weak in the knees. That
I'm a strong believer in people should. I know there's problems with the NRA, like the people and I get it. But if you don't want to join the NRA, join Gun Owners of America. Join ISRA, Illinois State Rifle Association. Join, Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Coalition. They're all waging court battles or
As we
battles
speak.
as we speak, and they need the funds to pay lawyers and do all of that stuff. But not just that, they need people, like us speaking up,
Yep.
saying things, and trying to, maybe grab a family member or nieces and nephews that they don't really care about guns. Okay, you don't care about guns, but let me teach you about the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
I can teach you plenty about the Second Amendment, and you don't have to ever fire a gun.
Yep.
That's why, that Mark Robinson, that was really inspiring. And hopefully, one of my dreams is that at some point there's one person out there that said, "Hi, I heard this guy Joe, and he really made me think about the
changed
Second
my mind.
Amendment."
Yeah.
If I change one mind, you change one mind, so on and so forth.
There's nothing for me to think about.
No, but it's other people. It's we're the battlefield is the court
Is the
system,
court
but
system.
but it's also on social media.
Yes.
It's just spelling. I think it was maybe 3 podcasts ago. We spoke to a fella. I remember his first name, Kevin. I forget his last name off the top of my head. But he said, "I'll be your guys' go-to leftist." And we had him on the podcast because he's anti-gun to a certain degree. But we sat down. We had a great conversation, and he even said a couple times,
I'll have
I
to
never,
listen to him.
I never thought about that. And then he thinks about it, right?
Yep.
And
Well,
then
that sways people.
And-
you
and-
did your job, Joe.
but I don't know that we necessarily swayed Kevin, but there might be more people that are willing to listen to that podcast that agree with Kevin, and maybe one of those persons sits there and goes, "I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that."
Right.
And then before you know it, there's reasonable conversation, because as soon as everybody starts yelling and retreat to a corner, nothing gets resolved.
Nothing gets resolved.
But we need to get people to understand, realize, appreciate what the true meaning of the
Of
Second
our
Amendment is.
God-given rights.
Also, that fear part is a big one. The more we can outreach to people who either have a low or negative opinion about us, get those people who just are on the fence and really just don't know, the more we get them around us and the more they see that these are, you know, because like that fear part, a lot of it plays on people's unknown, right? When they don't know who the people are that own guns, they have images of us, right? And when they show those videos of the gun, you know, shooting in the air, and it's you know, it's out
Never
of
know
control.
where the bullet's gonna land.
That's
right?
those people that don't have any frame of reference. They buy into that. It's easier for them to buy in it because they have no experience.
Capitalizing on ignorance.
The more we bring them in, the more open we are with who we are and why we do it. I think that also helps as well.
Well, I've posed this question to a few people. Do you think teachers should be allowed
Yep.
to carry a firearm in school?
Yep.
And my answer is yes.
Yep.
And I've had plenty of conversation about it. And my whole thing is, it's interesting how the words get skewed. Because I'll ask that question and somebody go, I can't believe you want to force teachers. Hold on.
It's not forcing teachers.
Nobody said forcing anyone
right,
to do
right.
anything.
I'm
like, you know, you go to the range. Do you know how many teachers are already participating in a training and sporting events and stuff like that? But if your child was in a school and there was a mass shooter and you can place a gun in a teacher's hand that would have been able to stop that shooter,
That's right.
would you want that to be? And if your answer is yes, then you should want them to be able to carry. This whole, what if a student takes it away from the teacher and then uses it? That's just a scare tactic.
Well, the only way he's going to take it away from the teacher is if the teacher pulls it out. And if the teacher pulls it out, she pulls it out to use it. There's no taking away. And I hate to bust your bubble, Joe and Leigh, but I can guarantee you there's teachers carrying a pistol in their purse or got something up underneath their hidden somewhere.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? I don't know about Joliet West because they have metal detectors.
Yeah.
Now. But, yeah, they need to pass that law. That needs a...
I think that'll be a while in Illinois. There actually in other states there are schools that allow that. Yeah.
Sure. Just not Illinois.
Right. No, in Utah, I was talking to a teacher that used to teach in Utah, and he said in his school they had to know you were, you know, that you were going to. It's not just fly by night.
Right.
But he said, you know, he worked in rural Utah. He goes, we call the police. It's a half-hour response time.
Yep. A lot of good that's going to do.
I mean, a lot of stuff can happen in 30 minutes.
That's right.
A lot.
Yeah. Somebody with 600 rounds, a lot can happen.
Yeah.
Like 300 deaths.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But like you said, what's it mean to me? It's responsibility, ownership, morals. It's, you know, it's how you're upbringing, you know, like we said, 10 and 11, me and my brother, 10, 11, 12 years old with a 410, responsible, don't know how to, you didn't have to shoot everything that moved either. You know what I mean?
I think that I think it would be safe to say that the founding fathers of our country would have said that to not maintain that right would be equivalent to lowering yourself to a state of slavery.
Yep.
I would agree with that.
They would have said that the idea that you would somehow accept that you would be disarmed would be lowering yourself to a state of
on your
slavery.
knees.
Yep.
On your knees, peasant.
Yep.
And it's just, that irks me. It's just like, but you never served one day in a line unit, you know. I've been in some hairy situations. You've been in some hairy situations. I'm like, don't tell me you're going to come get my gun. You're going to get them bullets first, like I said. I just... You know, I care about I'm on my way out, man. I'm 62 years old. My wife says, what the other day, what do you got, 5-10 years to wait? You're so crazy. You got 5-10 years left. You know, I'm like, geez, thanks. But I care about my kids and my grandkids, your kids, your grandkids, you know, and, you know, and they're going to be, my grandkids are going to be brought up right because my kid is bringing them up right. And we still have that here. Yeah. We do still have that. You know?
Yeah, but if we don't pay attention, it'll slip away.
Yep. And we'll be watching it from heaven slip away, Joe, if we don't do something now.
I don't know what else to do. I'm doing, you know, what I like to think that, you know, I'm doing my small part.
Right.
You know, you're doing your small part. You're doing.
Well, actually, what we need to do is maybe get a little more money together and have it live.
Live podcast?
Yeah.
Someday we'll do
And
that.
people will call in, and then you get, people will want to get involved.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we were talking, and I'll put out some details on Facebook. But in a couple weeks, we're gonna be on location somewhere,
Right.
and just anyone can come up and talk. And
Well, that's great. That's you need to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
so
agree.
that'll be in a
These
couple. Weeks.
conversations are the best.
Oh yeah, I'm having a good
Yeah.
time. I had a good time, and
It's a little
I
nerve-wracking
get-
at first, right, Steve?
Well,
but then once you're into it, it's like, oh,
yeah,
this
it's
isn't
pretty
bad at
cool.
all.
I
Yeah.
mean, I get off topic as we all do a little bit, but then we flow back into it. I mean, we are
Lord knows we've been
responsible
off topic plenty.
adults here. Like I said, well, if we don't do something now, you are doing your part, Joe, Leigh, by having these. I do my part by telling. If I see somebody out, I tell people all the time, you need to get a gun. You need to learn how to shoot it, and you need to keep it in your purse and protect yourself.
Absolutely.
On the Herald News, they talk about somebody getting shot or whatever. I'll put on there, well, do you or anybody you know own a gun? No. I says, well, get one and learn how to shoot it.
Yeah, I've seen some of those comments.
And they banned my comment. They banned it. That was years ago. Yeah, they banned enticement. Zuckerberg, he put me in jail for something I said 3 years ago. If I get a little bit out of line, 3 years ago, I'm in Facebook jail. Unbelievable. When you talk the truth, which we're doing is talking the truth, we're moral people. Hey, don't come pouncing on me, telling me how to live my life. If I'm a moral person and I'm treating people right, and which we do, we're the people you want to have that firearm.
Yes. It pisses me off in December because on Facebook you start to see the messages, hey guys, women are going to be at the mall shopping for, doing their Christmas shopping. Let's pay attention and make sure they're getting to their car okay.
Right?
Just for December?
Yeah.
What
How about
what
all
about
the
fucking
time?
January
Yeah,
through
yep,
November?
yep.
Like why do you need to even say it? Just like that's what you do.
You do.
That's right.
You pay attention and you make sure the world is okay.
Yep.
I'm not saying any of us are police. I'm not saying, any of that stuff. But I sure as shit would pretend to be a woman's boyfriend if she thought being close to me is going to keep someone else away.
That's right.
Sure, jump on the arm for 10 minutes, whatever.
Cops love people like us. I tell the cops, all the cops know me. I says, hey, I got your back. Oh, I know you do. When this, Black Lives Matter thing was going on years ago, in my neighborhood, they had a big old march. The next street over, Crest Hill cops got called. Joliet cops got called. And I scope on my 308 looking at what's going on, man, in case I have to. When the riots were there, we packed up and I went and made sure that they were throwing bricks at the cops. I wasn't going to let it happen. Like I said, half my family's cops and just a couple state cops, and they love us. Every time I'm like, I see a cop alone pulled over at night, and he's got a couple cars pulled over, and there's somebody out there doing this, I kind of like just stop and pull on the side street. I do it all the time. I'm not itching for action, but I'm not going to let it happen either.
Yeah.
So I'm just not going to let it happen.
I want to know what you like to shoot.
Yeah, there you go. Let's find out.
How often do you get to do it?
Well, me and your buddy John, I won't say no last names, he keeps telling me we need to sit up on the rooftop and put some targets out 600 yards. I says, oh, absolutely. Out at the farm,
I don't mind saying this because he talks how good of a shot he is.
Yep.
But I keep telling him to let's go
Yep.
with his pistol,
Yep.
and he hasn't gone yet.
The answer to your question, Leigh,
Yeah.
for hunting, I got a nice Thompson Setter Winchester 270. Okay, that
Winchester 270.
I'm dead. Well, that's the round.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's
Is it bolt gun?
yeah, bolt action, and I'm good with it up to 350, 400 yards. I'm gonna hit you somewhere. I could get dialed in a little better. I got a Browning A bolt 308.
Okay. Yeah.
And an AR. But my favorite one is my High Point carbine, 40 cal.
Okay.
Boop, 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 with the red dot. Good to 100 yards, man. Boop, 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 boop. It's a beautiful gun.
right.
And it's nice and quiet too.
That's the fun one.
All right.
You know, it's like I call it the little thumper.
You're pretty fond of that little carbine you got too. That
Oh, I
pistol.
love that. I have shot a AR-15 pistol,
Right,
chambered in 9mm,
right.
and one of the most fun guns I've ever shot.
Oh yeah.
But another one I've shot that is just an absolute blast is that carbine in 5.7 by 28. That's a lot of fun to shoot too.
Right.
That's I can shoot that all day. That's an absolute blast.
Well, I carry a SARS BP-9. It's a Czechoslovakian junk.
No.
Well, hold on. It's loose as a goose. Okay, it rattles, it rolls, but I could put that, if there's a round in the throat, put that thing out in the rain for a year, and I guarantee I'll pick it up and it'll shoot.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sloppy, and I'm good with it.
If
You know?
I'm not real familiar with the company overall, but if I recall correctly, when they started producing pistols, they specifically wanted to compete with the reliability of Glock.
Right. I hate Glocks. I hate them.
Uh-oh. Want to talk to him? Big
all right.
Glock, big Glock guy here.
You can. It's total freedom here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, say whatever you want.
No, I'd like to go shoot. Well, me and him, we were supposed to go to dinner or lunch at Marishka's that day. That shootout was happening.
Oh, hey, that sounds good. I haven't been to Marishka's in a
And
long
he says he called.
Oh, that day?
Yeah.
No
that
kidding.
Day, that shootout.
He was supposed to meet.
He says, guess what, man? If we would have went to lunch, we'd have been in a gunfight. I says, yep.
Yeah. So one of our podcasts was we talked about it and then did a short interview with Dave, the bartender there.
Right.
And
Good dude. Dave's a good dude.
I like Dave a lot.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
So did a brief interview with him, and then we talked about the interview and what he saw and witnessed, and
Punks.
yeah.
Just wildly shooting, could shoot in. You know, these poor kids in Chicago with these punks, that a stray bullet hitting a little 2-year-old playing. You know what I mean? Didn't even get a chance to enjoy life. That's horrible.
And
we could go
that
on
is
and on.
terrible.
True.
That is terrible, 100%. And I don't think anybody will deny that that's terrible. The problem I have with that, other than what's actually going on, is that is what gets used to push for the gun control.
Yes.
When you're talking about people that never should even be possessing them in the first place.
That's right. And that's how these Democrats get in. They know that they got that vote. If they, most of your, black people up in Chicago, they're going to vote Democrat. If you get rid of the punks and the thugs, well, guess what? They're never going to get rid of them.
They haven't.
Okay. I mean, I know how to get rid of them.
Right.
You send a battalion of grunts in there,
you'll get
pissed
it.
off
You'll get it.
paratroopers,
Yeah.
and say, hey, man, we're going to give you a case
lock
of
it
beer
down.
when you're done in your operation at night. It's done. It's over with. But, and Trump might just do something like that. Trump, you know what I mean?
I expected that. Well, we got a couple years left, so maybe it'll
Yeah.
still happen. But I
you know,
thought that might be one of the first things that he did.
and I hope Pritzker, he talks a good game. Him and Brandon Johnson, with Tom Homan coming to town. If JB says, "Oh, you got to come through me first," I'm like, "Oh boy,
Yeah.
please just arrest the guy."
Let me know when that's happening. I'd like to witness that. Yeah. Big supporter of Tom Homan too.
Yeah.
This conversation right here is the reason that I'm optimistic. I think we're heading in the right direction. I think there's, at least at the national level, for right now, there are at least some adults in charge.
Yeah.
And a lot of those adults that are in charge aren't really afraid of
voicing their moral
exactly.
opinion.
They're not as
Scared to lose a vote.
sissified as
Yes.
us, former generations of politicians were. So I'm optimistic about the direction we're going.
Especially with J.D. Vance, a combat veteran. And I'm a firm believer in that. If you want to pervert the Constitution, this is what they need to do. The only way you can serve in federal office is you've had to have an honorable discharge from the military. Because, I'm not saying, you don't have morals, but, I mean, you don't get good conducts in the military medals. I got 2 of them. You don't get good conduct medals because you're a stroke. I served in a line unit, you know what I mean? A recon unit. You know, there's a lot of weight there, you know, mentally and physically, you know. So, you know, we got Vance, you know, Tom Cotton, you know, he's a big supporter of, you know, them are the people we need in office. And I'm a firm believer that more of them people need to run.
Well, what I'm excited about is that I think most people would agree with me that President Trump has changed what the Republican Party is. And
Yeah.
based on this last election, I think they really opened their eyes and goes, this is what they're looking for. The
Yep.
people that you're describing, the mentality,
Yep.
the attitude, the go
Make
out. and
America
get it
great
done.
again. It's not the Republic, it's the MAGA movement.
Right.
And half of the Republicans are pissed off at him because he's going to call
yeah.
them out.
Right.
Sooner or later, something's going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
So-
it's a new regime. That's for sure.
And for the better.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
That was my point.
Well, he loves his country. I can tell you that.
It's a good
I
start.
mean, he was at Dover Air Force Base. Every time a body came, he was there. You know, they personally showed it.
Yeah.
Joe Biden was there once and he fell asleep.
Right after he checked his watch.
Yeah.
See how much longer he had to be there.
Yeah, well, I don't know, guys. I
No
just,
surprises there, though.
We'll have to go knock down some targets with you.
yeah.
So we're going to get you out
man.
there.
Anytime.
All right.
Do some draws,
Yeah.
some combat techniques.
Roll around. In the
See how quick we can get it right out of the old pants. I don't have a holster. I never did. It just that's
Really?
in the way. If anything, I'm gonna blow the kahunases off one day. I highly doubt
Don't
that.
do that. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Don't do that.
Hopefully you're still using it.
well, that's why I don't like Glocks, because I have one in the throat at all times, and them Glocks, you know, if I just hit
Yeah,
that
you're-
trigger,
well, yeah,
you
without
know,
a holster,
I like.
you
I
don't
gotta
wanna
have
do
a
that.
hammer
Yeah.
and a safety. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
That's why I just don't like Glocks. They don't have a hammer. You know,
That's
if
why
I
I'm
have
afraid
one
of-
in the throat and I'm right here, okay, and something hits up against that trigger, there goes my
Wouldn't it-
loving
Yep.
connection.
Wouldn't it be easier to just get a holster?
I'm comfortable.
Gotcha.
I'm comfortable. You know, we all have our quirks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Steve, like to give you the couple little swags
Thank
here.
you, Joe, Lee. That's
really-
awesome, man.
Really appreciate you
Thanks
doing
for
this.
coming out.
Yeah.
It
That's
was
awesome.
a great time. Good talk.
I knew it would be based on your passion. I knew it'd be a good conversation.
Right on. I just, you know, I'm big on American people and your rights. I just don't like people trampling on our rights. You know, without the second, we have nothing.
Well,
It's all over.
no, I agree with you. I think that's a perfect spot to end it.